The first breath of morning spilled across Wyoming's red desert in a sweep of molten gold, washing the sleeping prairie in a glow so soft it seemed the earth itself was exhaling. Frost jeweled every blade of grass, and the cold air trembled with the quiet crackle of life awakening. From the rim of a low mesa, a band of mustangs emerged like spirits rising from the night. Their silhouettes stretched long across the plains, each stride sending a whisper of mist into the stillness. A dark stallion paused, muscles coiled beneath his winter-thinned coat, nostrils flaring to taste the scent of a new season. The sky above them shifted from violet to rose, a slow bloom of color that caught in their manes and turned every toss of a head into a streak of fire. These horses carried the memory of continents within their blood, descendants of a lineage older than the red rocks themselves. Once they thundered across this land in numbers beyond counting, vanished in the grip of the Ice Age, and returned centuries later with Spanish explorers whose ships broke the horizon like silver gulls. Now they roamed again, untamed hearts in a country that still pulsed with echoes of the wild. A young mare stepped forward, the soft rustle of her hooves stirring the quiet. The stallion watched her, dark eyes steady, ears flicking to catch the far-off call of a raven. Around them the herd grazed in easy rhythm, pulling sweet shoots of new grass that pushed through the melting frost. Their movements shaped the prairie in subtle ways. Grazing kept the meadow healthy, their dropping scattered seeds, and the press of their hooves opened the soil to rain. Every motion, every breath, tied them to the land in a partnership as old as the wind itself. Beyond the ridges, the American West stretched limitless and patient. Pines darkened the foothills where elk left tracks in the soft mud, and rivers wound silver through valleys where eagles kept vigil. Across this wide country, horses lived in places as varied as the people who loved them, in the rocky basins of Nevada where dust storms blurred the horizon, on the salt-sprayed islands of Maryland where tides whispered against the marsh, and in the quiet forests of Montana where snow fell like feathers. They were more than animals here. They were symbols of freedom, companions to ranchers who herded cattle through moonlit draws, partners to riders who trained for the flash and thunder of rodeo or the measured grace of Olympic dressage. But for all their strength and the centuries of human stories braided into their own, a deeper force guided them, a rhythm older than saddles or fences. It pulsed quietly beneath every heartbeat, a drive to continue the line, to scatter life across the seasons. Winter had held them in a long hush, but now the days lengthened, and the hush was breaking. Light lingered a little longer each evening, and with it came change. Hormones stirred beneath sleek hides. Thick coats loosened and drifted like dandelion seeds on the breeze. Energy quickened. The stallion lifted his head again, catching a scent that was more than air and earth. It was the promise of renewal. The mare felt it too, though she gave no sign beyond a subtle arch of her neck and the restless flick of her tail. Nature moved within her like an unspoken command. Somewhere deep in the brain, tiny signals of light and warmth had tripped ancient levers, whispering that the time of birth and beginning had come round again. Around them the land itself seemed to lean toward life. Buds swelled on the cottonwoods along the river. Geese arrowed across the high blue sky, their cries sharp as the edge of a blade. The herd began to drift toward a distant draw where water pooled in the low ground, their bodies weaving through the grass in a pattern older than memory. The stallion stayed near the mare, his presence both guard and invitation. No words, no promises, only the simple certainty that the world renews itself when the sun returns. Far to the east, ranchers were saddling horses of their own, men and women whose lives depended on the same instincts that drove the mustangs. They knew the seasons shift in the restless snort of a gelding, the way barn swallows darted lower at dusk. Some would ride out to check fences, others to guide cattle to fresh pasture, all of them bound to these animals in a quiet covenant. Strength and grace, muscle and trust, traits that had carried them both across centuries of storms and silence. As the sun climbed higher, the chill faded from the prairie. Heat shimmered off the sand, and a breeze carried the scent of sage and melting snow. The stallion threw back his head and released a ringing call, a note so pure it seemed to split the day. It rolled over the hills and vanished into the blue, a declaration not of conquest but of belonging. The mare answered with a flick of her ears, a soft sound in her throat. Around them, the herd lifted their heads, the pulse of the season quickening like a drumbeat under the endless sky. Life, ancient and undiminished, moved forward. The prairie breathed, the horses grazed, and the earth turned toward another spring. Spring unfurled across the prairie with a rush of green so vivid it seemed the earth itself had taken a deep, delighted breath. Tender shoots of grass swayed under a breeze scented with rain and sage, and the wild herds felt the change before the first thundercloud ever rolled. Stallions lifted their heads to the warming wind, ears pricked to distant calls only they could decipher. Their eyes gleamed like polished obsidian as they pawed the softening soil, arching their necks in proud curves that caught the rising sun. Each toss of a dark mane was a message, every ringing whinny a challenge carried across miles of open plain. The mares sensed it too, though their response was quieter, a subtle dance of nature within. Hormones stirred like unseen tides, awakening the ancient rhythm that signaled readiness. Day by day the light lingered longer, and the warmth of it seeped into blood and bone, urging life toward life. They moved with a calm confidence, grazing on the sweet new grass while the air hummed with possibility. When the stallions drew close, the meadow filled with a language older than words. A foreleg struck the ground in a sharp display of strength, dust rising in golden motes around them. Two rivals might circle, muscles rippling beneath sleek hides, each testing the other with sidelong glances and sudden feints. The confrontations were swift bursts of energy, ears back, teeth flashing, but rarely more than a storm of posture. Victory belonged not to the most violent but to the most enduring, the one whose presence promised protection and vigor for the seasons ahead. High in Wyoming's Prairie Mountains, the echo of hooves rattled against red cliffs as a young challenger faced a seasoned leader. Below in Nevada's broad basins, another pair of stallions clashed beneath a sky streaked with late afternoon fire. These moments were not battles for conquest but declarations of worth, ensuring that the next generation carried strength tempered by patience. Amid the tension lay a quiet grace. When a mare accepted a suitor, her movement softened, her gaze lingering as she stepped toward him. It was a gesture so slight it could be missed by anyone not watching with their heart as well as their eyes. In that silent agreement, the cycle of life advanced without fanfare. Scientists might describe it with precise terms: cells uniting, a single spark of creation, but standing on the prairie, it felt like witnessing the turning of the world itself. On distant ranches and well-kept farms, humans mirrored the season's rhythm with gentler hands. Breeders and veterinarians observed, offering care but never haste, letting nature's clock set the pace. Whether in the untamed sweep of the desert or the quiet of a sheltered barn, the miracle was the same. Beneath the vast spring sky, life reached forward, compelled by forces older than memory, as inevitable as the greening of the grass.